Learned men of the law who could speak aloud sat beside him with psalters, reading the Psalms, of mighty King David and his noble deeds, and of noble Joshua and Judas Maccabeus. Caiaphas took a scroll from the chest and read how the children of Israel passed through the Red Sea while Pharaoh and his people were drowned in the waters, and he recounted much of the law of Moses at that time, when the fearful host had come into the field and had drawn up for battle with many bright weapons, with banners, pennons, and armoured beasts. No man could see the sun or make out the city. Vespasian arranged his forces throughout the valley, spreading his banners before the city gates. Then he spoke loudly to the barons and the bold men around him. My lords, listen to what I say. There is no king, knight, baron, bachelor, or any man who follows me, whose purpose in coming here is anything but to avenge Christ upon these faithless people who falsely slew him. Look up towards heaven and remember his wounds, his bindings and his beatings, all that his body suffered. Do not let these hounds of hell laugh at his suffering, for he bought us dearly with the blood of his heart. Never let them overcome us in battle, nor take our horses or our armour, unless they pay dearly for it. Neither helmet, breastplate, nor banner shall be yielded while life remains in any of our hearts. They are weak in battle and false in belief, yet they imagine in their pride that they can conquer the whole world. They are not grounded in God, nor do they trust in His grace, but only in their stubbornness and in their own strength. We are assembled today to serve Christ, destroy these enemies, and avenge his death. Then his lords and all the people around him replied, Whoever flees today, may the devil have his soul. The trumpeters raised their trumpets high and blew with all their strength. Horses stamped the ground beneath their armour. Stout men stood high in their stirrups, and the knights crossed themselves and fastened on their helmets. Clarions sounded loudly, with pipes, drums, and every kind of minstrelsy. When this great noise was made, the people trembled, like women weeping aloud when sorrow comes upon them. Then they seized their lances and rushed together like fire struck from flint. The battle flared between them. Dust rose into the air and drifted all around, like thunder rolling through heavy rain in the heavens. The young warriors charged throughout the field and shattered their spears. Knights fell upon the cold earth, fighting fiercely, and the defenders were driven back. There was no mercy at all. All went to their deaths. Titus at once struck down the strongest, for he jousted with the finest, eager for battle. Then with his bright sword he struck so hard that brains and blood remained upon the blade. In that same place with a mighty weapon he struck against brown steel as long as the blade endured. He raised his sword high, glaring like a wild boar, and hewed fiercely at whoever stood before him. His armour glittered like the rays of the sun from its precious jewels and fine gemstones. Shimmering shields and shining helmets blazed as though the heavens themselves were on fire. Vespasian looked upon the vanguard from the valley, saw the heathen falling headlong to the ground, and advanced with great company to meet the enemy. Like enraged griffins they hurled themselves together. Swiftly their spears struck men. Shields split like kindling upon men's shoulders. Sharp ground arrows flew and pierced with iron through many men's hearts. They cut down the enemy and crashed together. Horses became covered in blood from their wounds. Streams of blood ran through the valley. Far more was spilled than any could ever tell. Then Sir Sabian advanced when he saw the moment, riding with the rear guard and all his company. Boldly he attacked the castles carried upon the beasts' backs. They struck the dreadful elephants, ripping out their entrails with sharpened spears. Their ropes burst apart and were torn into small pieces until no horse could pass through the field. Castles crashed down, the camels collapsed, and the dromedaries were quickly slain. Blood foamed from them across the fields, so that in the valley the horses waded knee-deep. The men in the wooden towers above were thrown down by the force of the crashing blows. As the platforms and hard timbers came crashing together, they were so overcome by the heat that they became completely blinded. 100 dromedaries died in an instant. None remained alive on foot, except the single elephant at the great gate, where Caiaphas waited in the castle. He saw destruction coming upon his people and turned away. Together with all the great teachers of the law of Moses, 100 helmeted men hurried after them and captured them all before they could leave the castle. They bound Caiaphas so tightly that blood burst out beneath every bond, and led him together with all the great scholars to the belfry where the standard stood, and fastened them there. The beast, the tower, and all the splendid equipment, the chair, the candlesticks, the carbuncle gems, the scroll he had been reading, and all the fine books, they brought away with the bishop, though it grieved him greatly. Then the fearless people lost heart and turned back towards the city with Titus close behind, chasing them as hounds pursue a hare. Before he stopped, he alone had slain 100. The defeated host fell so thickly upon the field, like hail falling from heaven, one upon another, so that the valley embalmed with blood. Dead bodies lay everywhere, on every side without number. No horse could take a step except upon armour, or upon beasts, or upon men, or upon bright shields. The multitude of the slain was so great that otherwise it would have been a marvel. Yet the Romans were unharmed as when they had first arrived, every man well equipped, and not a single ring or mail was broken. No one could break their ranks, so firmly they stood. There was not a man in the besieging host who knew any wound. 100,000 helmets on the opposing side lay fallen in the field. Not one fewer, save 7,000 who fled back into the town, and in great misery defended the walls. Men leaped up at once and shut the gates. Fastening them securely with iron bolts, they drew up the bridges with their heavy chains and lowered the portcullises, fixing them firmly in place. They hurried up to guard the walls, brought fresh men forward, and made a strong defence. They carried into the towers many great barrels filled with large stones of marble and others beside. They stoutly defended every corner, hurtling stones 4 at a time. Those outside pressed the assault relentlessly until every ditch was filled with dead bodies. Then the dukes and the others withdrew from the ditch because the missiles from the walls were so fierce. They came back to the king just as they had gone, lacking not a single man and having suffered no injury. The princes quickly returned to their pavilions, made themselves ready there, and rested all night, while many kept watch outside the walls, though to their sorrow they would not allow the enemy to pass unchallenged. As soon as the red dawn rose into the sky, the trumpeters sounded to rouse the army. The king immediately gave the order, which was quickly known, to clear away the dead bodies from the field. They stripped the fallen and spared them no longer, taking golden belts set with precious stones, beads and brooches, rich bezants, helmets covered with gold, and costly jewels. They piled the dead upon the dead, a sorrowful sight to behold. Then they gathered themselves together, advanced upon the town, assembled at the walls, and launched an assault, striking down defenders at the 4 gates. They brought forward wooden siege towers that they had prepared, placing one before each gate and rising them high. Beginning with the greatest, they built a lofty fighting platform, set deep into the ground upon 12 strong posts. It was marvellously wide and built very high, with room for 500 men across its front to fight against the walls. Brave men high above hacked at the steps and began with all their might to assault the city. Below them the archers bent their bows and shot sharply upward at those upon the walls, with arrows and crossbows, doing all the harm they could to frighten those making the defence. Those upon the walls defended themselves with many engines of war. They threw down hot pitch and tar among the attackers, burning brimstone and molten lead, pouring it down as though it were water. Then Vespasian withdrew from the walls for a little while.